The photo that shattered my marriage appeared at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I knew instantly that everything had changed. While waiting for Amber to return from another late workout session, I scrolled through Instagram, the house too quiet, a gnawing feeling in my gut that I'd ignored for weeks. Confronting it meant facing the truth, that everything was a lie. Jake Morrison's post loaded. He grinned at the camera, captioned, "Sometimes the best moments come when you least expect them." Innocent enough, until I swiped to the next photo and everything changed. Amber stood pressed against him, lips on his cheek in a lover's kiss. Her hand on his chest was the intimacy of someone who'd touched him many times. Her expression, pure bliss, was a happiness I hadn't seen in months. My hands trembled as I zoomed in, studying every pixel, hoping I was misreading the situation. But there was no mistaking what I was seeing. This wasn't a friendly trainer-client relationship. This was an affair, and she was advertising it to the world. The location tag read Paradise Fitness, the gym where Amber claimed to be finding herself and working on her health for the past 4 months, where she spent 3 hours every Tuesday and Thursday evening, where she'd been building a new life that apparently didn't include me. I set the phone down and walked to our bedroom window, staring out at the suburban street where nothing had changed in the past hour, yet everything had. The same streetlights cast the same shadows, the same neighbor's dog barked at the same passing car. But inside our house, inside our marriage, inside me, everything had just shattered into a million irreparable pieces. Amber Honda pulled into our driveway at 12:23 a.m., 17 minutes later than usual. I counted every second. "Hey, babe," she called out as she entered through the garage, her gym bag slung over her shoulder, hair slightly messed despite the ponytail. Her cheeks held that post-workout glow, or perhaps it was something else entirely. "Sorry I'm so late. Jake really put me through my paces tonight." I'm sure he did, I thought, but my face remained neutral, pleasant even. "No worries. How was your session?" She kissed my forehead, a perfunctory gesture that now felt like mockery. "Exhausting. I'm going to shower." As water ran upstairs, I sat in my home office, staring at the framed photo of our wedding day that sat on my desk. 7 years ago, Amber had looked at me the way she looked at Jake in that Instagram post. When had that changed? When had I become the comfortable choice instead of the exciting one? But more importantly, what was I going to do about it? I'm a senior financial analyst for a mid-sized investment firm, which means I understand the value of patience, documentation, and strategic thinking. Emotional decisions lead to poor outcomes. Hasty reactions result in regret. If Amber wanted to play games, she was about to discover that she'd chosen the wrong opponent. Over the next week, I became a student of my own wife. I noticed things I'd previously dismissed. How she angled her phone away from me when texting, how she'd started working out 5 days a week instead of 3, how she'd begun criticizing small things about me, my haircut, my choice of restaurant, the way I loaded the dishwasher. Classic deflection tactics, making me the problem so she could justify her betrayal. I started paying attention to her conversations, her moods, her schedules. On Thursday evening, I overheard her talking to her sister Jennifer on the phone. "I just feel like something's missing, you know," Amber said, her voice carrying from the kitchen into the living room where I pretended to watch television. "Like maybe I settled too soon. David's a good man, but good isn't everything." My jaw clenched, but I kept my eyes on the screen. "I'm just saying, maybe people aren't meant to be with one person forever," she continued. "Maybe we're supposed to grow and change and explore." Explore, what a convenient euphemism for betrayal. By Friday, I'd made my decision. I would not be the emotional, confrontational husband who screamed and threw accusations. I would not make this easy for her by giving her ammunition to paint me as the unstable one. Instead, I would become something she couldn't predict or manipulate. I would become dangerous. I installed a tracking app on Amber's phone during one of her Saturday morning showers, using the tech skills I'd picked up during my MBA program. She'd always been careless with her passwords, using our anniversary date for everything. The irony wasn't lost on me. Within 48 hours, I had a full picture of her deception. 3 months of texts, starting with flirtation, progressing to explicit conversations, and by month 3, plans for their future. David suspects nothing, she'd texted Jake just 2 days earlier. He's completely clueless. Sometimes I think he's more interested in his spreadsheets than in me. Good, Jake had replied. Makes this easier. When are you going to tell him? Soon. I'm just figuring out the best way to do it. I don't want to hurt him unnecessarily. The casual cruelty of that statement hit me harder than any explicit detail about their physical relationship. She was planning to leave me, had been planning it for weeks, and was framing it as an act of kindness. I hired a private investigator named Robert Chen, a former police detective who specialized in marital infidelity cases. Within a week, he provided me with photos, timestamps, and location data that documented the scope of Amber's betrayal. Paradise fitness sessions that lasted 30 minutes, followed by 2-hour visits to the Riverside Inn, lunch dates at restaurants across town where they held hands across tables, shopping trips where Jake waited outside dressing rooms while Amber tried on lingerie I'd never seen. The paper trail was damning, but it was the recorded phone conversation that truly revealed who my wife had become. I'm just waiting for the right moment, Amber told Jake during a call she made from her car outside a Target store. David's been working a lot lately, and I think I can use that. Make it seem like he's the one who's been neglecting our marriage. Smart, Jake agreed. Turn it around on him. Make him feel guilty instead of angry. Exactly. I've been dropping hints about how distant he's been, how we never talk anymore. By the time I ask for the divorce, he'll probably think it's his fault. The methodical nature of her manipulation was breathtaking. This wasn't a woman who'd fallen into an affair out of loneliness or confusion. This was someone who'd calculated every move, planned every conversation, orchestrated every detail to ensure she came out looking like the victim. She had no idea that her victim was about to become her executioner. On a Wednesday morning, I confronted Jake Morrison outside Paradise Fitness. He was walking to his car, a gleaming red Mustang convertible that he'd posted about endlessly on social media, when I approached him. Jake Morrison, I said, my voice calm and conversational. He turned, sizing me up with the confident ease of a man who'd never faced real consequences for his actions. He was younger than me by about 5 years, built like someone who'd made fitness his religion, with the kind of cocky smile that probably made married women feel young again. Yeah, do I know you? I'm David Thompson, Amber's husband. Recognition flickered in his eyes, followed immediately by amusement. Oh, right. He actually grinned. Look, man, I don't know what you think you know, but I know everything, I said quietly. I've seen the photos. I've read the text messages. I know about the Riverside Inn. I know about your plans for my wife's future. His grin widened. So what? You gonna cry about it? Maybe beg me to give her back? The casual disrespect was almost impressive in its audacity. Here was a man who felt no shame, no guilt, no concern for the marriage he was destroying or the life he was dismantling. I'm going to give you one opportunity, I continued, my tone never changing. End your relationship with my wife. Today. Walk away and never contact her again. Jake laughed, actually laughed, and stepped closer to me. Or what? You'll beat me up? He looked me up and down dismissively. Dude, no offense, but you look like you haven't seen the inside of a gym since high school. And Amber? She's not going anywhere. She told me you guys haven't even touched each other in 2 months. Said being with you is like being married to a calculator. He opened his car door, still chuckling. Face it, man. She's outgrown you. Best thing you can do is make this easy on yourself and step aside. He drove away, leaving me standing in the parking lot with the morning sun beating down on my shoulders. But I wasn't angry anymore. Anger was hot, messy, unpredictable. What I felt now was something much colder, much more focused. I was ready to go to work. That evening, Amber came home with a strange energy, more animated than in weeks. She asked about my day, suggested takeout from our favorite Thai place. I knew immediately that Jake had told her about our conversation. "You seem happy tonight," I said, watching her. "Do I?" "I had a great workout. Jake says I'm making progress." "That's wonderful. I'm proud of you for sticking with it." She studied my expression, probably searching for signs of suspicion or anger. Finding none, she relaxed slightly. "David, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you ever think about what might happen if we weren't together?" The question hung in the air between us like a loaded weapon. This was it, the opening move in her campaign to make our divorce seem like a mutual decision. She was testing the waters, trying to gauge my reaction, hoping I'd give her ammunition to use against me later. "That's an interesting question," I said thoughtfully. "What made you think of it?" "I don't know. I guess I've been wondering if we're both really happy or if we're just comfortable." "Are you unhappy, Amber?" "I'm not unhappy, I'm just questioning things, I suppose. Wondering if we've both changed since we got married." I nodded seriously, as if genuinely considering her words. "I think questioning things is healthy. It shows we're growing as people." She blinked, clearly not expecting that response. She'd probably anticipated defensiveness, maybe anger, certainly not philosophical agreement. "So you've thought about it too?" she pressed. "I think about a lot of things," I said. "But I've always believed that if two people aren't meant to be together, they shouldn't force it. Life's too short to be unhappy." The confusion on her face was almost comical. She'd come home prepared to plant seeds of doubt, to initiate arguments that would justify her eventual departure. Instead, I was agreeing with her, making her feel like the conversation was her idea while simultaneously taking control of its direction. Over the following weeks, I perfected this approach. Every time Amber tried to pick a fight, I remained calm and reasonable. When she criticized my appearance, I thanked her for the feedback and asked for specific suggestions. When she complained about our social life, I encouraged her to pursue activities that made her happy. The psychological effect was devastating. She couldn't paint me as the problem if I refused to be problematic. She couldn't claim I was controlling if I gave her complete freedom. She couldn't say I didn't listen if I agreed with everything she said. But while I was playing the perfect husband on the surface, I was methodically dismantling Jake Morrison's life beneath the radar. It started with his car. The Mustang represented everything Jake valued about himself: his success, his image, his appeal to women like my wife. On a Tuesday night, while he was presumably with Amber at the Riverside Inn, his beloved car suffered a series of unfortunate incidents in the Paradise Fitness parking lot. 4 slashed tires, deep scratches along both sides that spelled out "cheater" in jagged letters, a shattered windshield with a brick sitting on the driver's seat, wrapped in a note that read, "Actions have consequences." The damage was extensive enough to total the vehicle, but not so extreme that it suggested premeditation. It looked like random vandalism, the kind of thing that happened to flashy cars in public parking lots. Jake's insurance company was skeptical, but ultimately paid out, though they raised his premiums significantly and flagged his account for potential fraud. Amber mentioned the incident casually the next evening. "Poor Jake had his car vandalized last night. Can you believe that? Who would do something so cruel?" "That's terrible," I said, looking up from my laptop with appropriate concern. "Was anything stolen?" "No, just destroyed. He's really shaken up about it. He thinks someone might be targeting him specifically." "Why would someone target a fitness trainer?" She shrugged, but I caught the worried look that crossed her face. "Maybe a jealous boyfriend or something. You know how some men can get—" Indeed I did. The car was just the beginning. Over the following month, Jake's life experienced a series of increasingly unfortunate events. His apartment's plumbing mysteriously failed, flooding his unit and destroying most of his belongings. His social media accounts were hacked, posting embarrassing content that cost him several clients. Anonymous complaints were filed with the gym's management about his unprofessional conduct with female clients. Each incident appeared unrelated, the kind of bad luck that sometimes strikes in clusters. But the cumulative effect was devastating to Jake's confidence, his business, and his relationship with my wife. Amber became increasingly anxious as her lover's life spiraled downward. She started asking me strange questions about my whereabouts, my mood, whether I'd been acting differently lately. "Is everything okay at work?" she asked one evening, studying my face intently. "Everything's fine. Why do you ask?" "You just seem, I don't know, different somehow." "Different how?" "Calmer, I guess, more focused." She was right, of course. I was different. I was no longer the passive husband who accepted whatever treatment he received. I was no longer the man who could be manipulated and discarded without consequence. I was becoming something much more dangerous. I chose our 7th wedding anniversary for the final act, though Amber had forgotten the date entirely, another small betrayal that once would have wounded me, but now only strengthened my resolve. "I've planned a surprise dinner party for this Saturday," I announced on Wednesday evening. "I've invited some friends and your parents. I thought it would be nice to celebrate with the people who matter most to us." Amber looked uncomfortable but couldn't refuse without arousing suspicion. "That sounds lovely. What's the occasion?" "Our anniversary, of course, 7 years married." The guilt that flickered across her face was almost satisfying. Almost. By Saturday evening, our living room was filled with the people who'd witnessed our wedding, celebrated our milestones, and believed in our marriage. My brother Mark and his wife Lisa. Amber's sister Jennifer and her husband Tom. Amber's parents, Robert and Margaret. 3 couples from our neighborhood who'd become close friends over the years. Amber looked beautiful that night in a navy blue dress I'd bought her for Christmas 2 years ago. She kept checking her phone, probably hoping Jake would rescue her from what she assumed would be a tedious evening of marital celebration. At 8 o'clock sharp, I stood up and tapped my wine glass with a knife. "Thank you all for coming tonight," I began, my voice steady and warm. "As most of you know, Amber and I are celebrating our 7th wedding anniversary." Murmurs of congratulations filled the room. Amber smiled tightly, playing her part. 7 years is a significant milestone," I continued. "It's long enough to really know someone, to see who they are when they think no one is watching. Long enough to understand their true character." The room grew quieter. Amber's smile became more strained. "Marriage is built on trust," I said, my tone remaining conversational. "On honesty, faithfulness, and mutual respect. When those foundations crack, the entire structure becomes unstable." Amber's face had gone pale. Jennifer was looking between us with growing concern. 3 months ago, I discovered that my wife has been having an affair with her personal trainer, Jake Morrison. The room erupted. Gasps of shock, Jennifer's hand flying to her mouth, Amber's mother making a small choking sound. Amber herself looked like she'd been struck by lightning. "Amber," I said, turning to face her directly, my voice remaining calm and measured. "Would you like to tell everyone about your relationship with Jake? About the hotels? About how you told him I was more interested in spreadsheets than in you?" "David, please," she whispered, but I wasn't finished. I produced a manila folder from behind my chair, the same folder that had been sitting in my home office for weeks, waiting for this moment. "I have documentation," I continued, opening the folder with deliberate care. "Text messages, hotel receipts, credit card statements, photographs. Would everyone like to see them?" "Stop!" Amber said, louder now, her voice breaking. "I hired a private investigator," I said, beginning to place items on the coffee table where everyone could see them. "I recorded phone conversations. I have 3 months of evidence detailing every aspect of her betrayal." The photographs I'd selected were devastating but not explicit. Amber and Jake entering the Riverside Inn, Amber and Jake kissing in his car, Amber and Jake laughing together over dinner at a restaurant 40 miles from our home. "You planned this," I said, my voice still eerily calm. "You orchestrated every detail. You were going to make me think our divorce was my fault, that I was the one who'd failed as a husband." Amber's father stood up, his face red with shame and fury. "Amber Elizabeth, is this true?" She couldn't speak. Tears were streaming down her face, but they were tears of humiliation, not remorse. "The most heartbreaking part," I continued, "isn't the betrayal itself. It's the calculation behind it, the way you systematically destroyed our marriage while pretending to be the victim. The way you planned to make me feel guilty for your choices. I pulled out the final documents, divorce papers, already prepared and signed by my attorney. I'm filing for divorce on Monday, I said. The house is mine. The cars are mine. The savings accounts are mine. Under Connecticut law and the prenup you signed, you're entitled to exactly what you brought into this marriage, which, as everyone here knows, wasn't very much. The room was dead silent except for Amber's quiet sobbing. Jake Morrison, I continued, will not be available to console you. His life has become rather complicated recently. Car problems, housing issues, professional difficulties, the kind of problems that tend to follow men who prey on married women. Amber's eyes widened as the implications sank in. David, what did you do? I defended myself, I said simply. I fought back against people who thought I was too weak and too stupid to protect what was mine.